Christ is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for October 30th, 2025. Well, we are winding this month down pretty quickly here, and yesterday turned out to be a pretty nasty little whipsaw in the market. So let's take a look at what happened overnight. First off, if we take a look at Asian markets, mostly lower last night. We had Australia was down $40.70. That's 0.46% lower. Hong Kong was down 63.45 or 0.24% lower. South Korea was up $5.74. 0.14% higher. The Nikkei managed $17.96 to the upside, or 0.04% higher. India was lower by 176.05, 6.68% lower, and Shanghai was down 29.43 or 0.73% lower. If we take a look at European markets here this morning, European markets are red across the board at this moment. We have the DAX down $7.66 or 0.03%. FTSE is down 36.53 or 0.37%, and the CAC is lower by 43.69 or 0.53% this morning. Looking at U.S. markets here this morning, we're red across the board as well, but they have been improving here just slightly. Right now, the Dow futures are down 144 points. We've got S&P 500 futures down $9.50. Let's see, and NASDAQ futures down $35 here this morning. Let's take a look at some other markets here. Taking a look at bonds, we have bonds just a little bit higher here this morning. If we look at the 2-year bonds, they're coming in at 3.59%. The 10-year have moved up to 4.07%, and the 30-year up 4.62%. After we learned yesterday that they may be far from a rate cut in December, moving those bonds back higher. Now, as a result, we've seen the dollar strengthen here just a little bit. Our dollar is a bit higher, still holding in that upside trend here. And yesterday, after we had that rate announcement, it really surged to the upside. So now we'll see if we're kind of breaking this little area of resistance right here. Now we have that chance to stretch on up here and test this recent high, maybe even break out up there in the US dollar. If we take a look at what happened in precious metals yesterday, well, gold was looking pretty good, and then reversed after we learned that there may not be a rate cut in December. Still up in the air. Possibility still exists, but very up in the air. And as you can see here, gold this morning trying to bounce off the lows, but is still down $3.20 an ounce here at the moment. Silver had a little bit better response yesterday, maintaining a little bit of bullishness into the close, but this morning down just slightly, 12 cents at 47.78 an ounce here this morning. Gold is just under 4,000, $3,998 an ounce. Copper this morning is a little bit lower. We've got copper mining moving up here, but copper futures are down about 6 cents here this morning. So we'll want to keep an eye on that. Platinum is up, but ever so slightly, only up. It just ticked to just ever so slightly lower, 10 cents lower on the day, 0.01% lower. Palladium this morning trying to hold on here, pushing up $10.50 an ounce, or 0.73% higher. Cryptos had a pretty nasty reversal yesterday, and it looks like that is continuing here this morning. We've got Bitcoin down 630.58 a coin, or 0.57%, after a really strong reversal yesterday. Ether down $17.30, or 0.44% lower, and Solana is also down $1.19, or 0.59% lower here this morning. Right across the board in those crypto markets. Let's take a look at what's happening in oil this morning. Oil is also just a touch lower here at the moment. Whoops, let's get USO in there. There we go. USO at the moment, as you can see, trying to bounce off the low of the morning, but oil right now at down 32 cents at 60.15 a barrel. And oil is just trying to figure out, what supply chains are going to mean, as U.S.-China kind of comes into a truce for at least for a year. We'll see how that goes. But Brent this morning also down at 64.51 a barrel, and natural gas is trying to bounce up just a little bit, but only up 1/10 of 1 cent. So not much going on in there at the moment. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. And let's get ready for the Thursday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Well, yesterday was quite a day with a Federal Reserve rate cut, and then finding out that the market had planned for almost a guarantee of a rate cut in December. That doesn't seem to be in the cards here at the moment, and everything is being reassessed. And then we had big tech reports. And as I was mentioning here, there is that chance that because of the massive spending these companies were going to be doing, they were going to have really big blowout earnings, or it might disappoint the market from the valuation that we have been seeing in these stocks. And Meta disappointed yesterday. And again, it didn't have anything to do with meeting their expectations on estimates. It's just the massive amounts of spending that they are doing here, and that disappointed the market, pushing things down. Microsoft also moved lower yesterday on that news. So now we face Apple and Amazon reports as those big tech giants in the afternoon, and who knows what that's going to bring. But we know that the costs of AI are really mounting up on these companies, really running high. And they're going to have some really outsized earnings to overcome that and maintain these valuations that are, well, record highs we've never seen. The S&P 500, for example, be as elevated in valuations as we are right now. Let's take a look at our index charts here, and let's see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to look at the charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be. We want to focus in on the details and really take that good hard look on price action without bias. When we take a look at this here in the Dow, there is no way you can look at this chart without seeing bullishness. I mean, it's straight up in trend. Everything is copacetic here, but there is a little bit of a hint that maybe we got a little carried away to the upside. So if the bulls can find inspiration today in any of the economic data or earnings data, then we have that opportunity that we could bounce off this area right here, bounce off this upside trend, push back up and see if we can start moving back through this progression back up toward all-time highs. And certainly every reason to believe that's possible with those big tech giant reports this afternoon. Certainly a possible thing to be looking forward to. If the bears have anything to say in breaking this area right in here, this little area of support, well, there is a pretty good sized gap here below that could fill really quickly. So watch that carefully. If we fall off of this little bit of an edge, watch for that opportunity that we could drift into that gap pretty quickly on the day. If they were to push on further from there, then we have that potential that we could move back down into this stronger area of price support. That would raise the concern of breaking this upside trend, so we'll have to keep an eye on that if those bears were to really get going. I kind of doubt that they will because there's so much anticipation of those big tech reports this afternoon. It might have that chance of being there tomorrow if those two tech giants were to disappoint. Let's take a look at our SPY. Now, our SPY made a new record high close yesterday. Well, maybe I think the S&P 500, they said, maybe not the SPY, but the S&P 500 just squeaked out new record high closes. It rallied back. So we're still seeing tremendous strength in the big tech, even though these valuations are so extended at the moment. So if the bulls can find inspiration here, we certainly have that possibility. We could push up here and see blue sky above really easily in the SPY, and every reason to believe that's possible with those tech giant reports here this afternoon. If, however, those bears were to get any grouchier here and start pushing lower, that possibility of that pushback to retest yesterday's low and that little area price support right in there we'll want to be watching, because if we were to slip down through there, we have that potential of falling into that gap, and that's a pretty big gap. So that would pull us back toward this upside trend. If that holds, no problem. If that were to fail, that's where the problem comes in. We might test this area of price support right in here, filling that next gap, and that could be that concern in the market. Again, I would not expect that here today because of the anticipation of tech reports tonight or after the bell. But if those two companies were to happen to disappoint, then that's where we could see those moves occur. Let's take a look at our QQQ. QQQ closing at a new record high yesterday, battled back after that rate decision and continues to show bullishness here, holding up quite well. Just a slight pullback here in the market so far. So boy, every reason to believe that can stretch on through here and see some new record highs and blue sky above in that in the Qs. If the bears were to have anything to say, first we have to come back down and retest the top of that candle, and then we can push back down toward yesterday's low. We have a gap here, but it's not a huge gap like we saw in the SPY in the diamond. So a gap right here where we could pull back and fill that and then still find support in here and bounce off. I think it would be if we were to drop through here. If we were to drop through there, this is a big gap and a big hole underneath the market. So again, I think that would have to be after the bell if that were the case. But watch that closely here. We are very, very extended in this market, and valuations are incredibly high. If we take a look at IWM, well, poor old IWM, it doesn't get the benefit of the big tech giants like the other indexes do, and it has been pulling back pretty steadily here. Yesterday had quite a whipsaw in there on IWM. We are back in this range, testing some of this support here in the chart and testing this upside trend. So keep an eye on IWM. If the bulls can find inspiration here, well, then we just start progressing back up through this area here and see if we can break on through. And of course, getting up here, we could have a new record highs in IWM, and I think there's every reason to believe that's possible. Now, if the bears were to have anything to say, you could also see a little bit of concern here, because if we were to break back down below this area of price support, like we did yesterday, stretching down here, we've got a nice price support right in here, but if that were to fail, then I think we start raising a little bit of concern here on the Russell. So watch that carefully here in the market. Let's take a look at our VIX. One of the things that's been really interesting about this market is we've been setting new record highs. In the last couple of days, our VIX has been going up. So we've been seeing a little bit of honesty in the market while we're seeing this wild bullishness, that there's a concern here on the fear. And then, of course, yesterday's rate situation here really started to fire that up a bit yesterday. The rally right at the end of the day helped push that back down. But let's watch this carefully. If the bears were to really grab a hold of something here, I think there's that chance we could break back above this area, getting back up in here. Now remember, we've got to recover and hold to produce any kind of upside trend. So this is that first stretch back up. Doesn't really worry, doesn't really cause any major problem. It's that stretch back up in the hold that causes the problem. If that were to come into play, watch that carefully here in the market. If the bulls can shake this off, and boy, I think there's plenty of evidence to show that they can shake off just about anything nowadays, then we might push this right back down here and retest some of these lows here in the market if those bulls just show real defiance to the details here in the market. Let's take a look at our T20s. Our T2122 indicator in here. If you take a look at that, we had a pretty substantial pullback in here. So here again, we were setting new record highs, SPY and QQQ, but we saw the majority of stocks selling. And we've been seeing that for the last 2 or 3 days, where we just haven't been able to get breadth in the market while we're setting new record highs, because we've been so centric into just a handful of companies. If we keep an eye on this, if the bears continue to press this morning, you can see we've still got quite a bit of space for them to work to the downside. If the bulls shake this off and push back up, well, we've opened up a big opportunity for the bulls. So it's going to be very, very important on those earnings and things like that, how they inspire here to the upside. Remember, back below 50% in here, that is a little bit of a concern. It's pretty remarkable that we've made new record highs, and we're falling below mid-range here on our T2122. We also saw yesterday that percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average declined pretty sharply. We dropped below 35% here in that chart. So we saw quite a little bit of weakness on some of those internals, just showing that the majority of stocks were showing quite a bit of weakness. Now, if the bulls can fight back here, and I think there's possibility that that is the case, particularly after the bell today. Push back up here, we could reclaim that pretty easily and be right back up here testing 40 and even up here to 45% with a good stretch. If the bears continue to have anything to say, the concern will be right here around 30%. If we were to break below there, then I think we have that chance that bears could take over with some energy here in the market, but we'll see. If we take a look at T2107, T2107 also got hurt pretty bad yesterday. Just a really strong stretch lower, breaking below that 50% of stocks, holding above their 200-day, and falling straight down toward that 45%. So watch that carefully. If we can hold above that 45%, we're probably in pretty good shape. If the bears were to push us back down through there, I think we're going to have just a little bit of concern, and it may start here eventually giving those bears a little bit more teeth to fight. So we'll see here on the day. Our T2101 has been a concern for me for quite a while, as you guys know. T2101 dropped yesterday as we were racing to the upside, setting new highs in the market. It was continuing to show weakness as the majority of stocks were selling rather than going up. And when we got this little hook to occur in here, that hook occurred, that bounce occurred when the bears came in. We were showing lots of weakness here, and then when the bears really picked up quickly in the market, breadth improved just slightly on that bearish side. So we'll want to be watching that pretty closely here. If we continue to see breadth on the bearish wave pushing up, we have been seeing on the bullish push here to new record highs, that breadth weak and declining. If that breadth were to increase on the bearish side, that could be a problem. If the bears continue to show no willingness to fight and that breadth pulls back on this pullback that we're getting right now, if the breadth continues to fall on that bearish wave, I would expect the bulls are going to come right back in and push right back up. So watch that carefully. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. In our economic calendar, we've got a couple things to be paying attention to. First thing this morning, we're going to get a GDP number, so watch that carefully here today. And right after that, we're going to get jobless claims. That's assuming that we're going to get these numbers at all and not just get more delays because of shutdown here. I think claims could be something that's delayed. GDP, we might still get that. We've got Bauman that will be speaking today. So keep an eye on that. We're past the FOMC, so now the Fed members are out there talking again. And then we've got a natural gas report. We've got bond auctions here. Logan will also be speaking, and a Fed balance sheet. So we look into Friday. Remember, everyone, we've got the personal incomes and outlays number on the calendar. I'm not sure whether we'll get that or not, but watch that carefully. That is clearly a market moving number, just like these are. So watch that carefully for Friday morning. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar here today, and it is a whopper. We've got a lot of earnings coming our way here today. Again, grab a screenshot, pause the video, grab a screenshot if you're interested in that. But as you can see, we just have a slew of reports here today. This afternoon, the notables here that everyone's going to be paying attention to, of course, are Apple and Amazon. So watch that carefully today. After the bell will probably be the biggest chance of that big volatility. So be careful. And one thing I will say about volatility, if you're option traders, you've probably been noticing that as we've been incredibly bullish, but the bid-ask spreads in options have been terrible and seem to continue to be widening out. That's showing that even the market makers are uncertain about what's happening in the market, and they're spreading those bid-ask spreads be really careful here, particularly chasing anything that's already made a big move. Make sure you're paying really close attention to the risk of those stops, because I think big whipsaws are still possible in this market. Let's take a look at what we have going on for some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube, and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor by clicking that thumbs up button, leaving a brief comment, that helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who does take the time to do that. I really, truly appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And thank you so much for all of the kindness. Been trying to answer all of those comments here. I've had the time here recently. I don't know if I will today, because I will be running 2 trading rooms today. I'll be pretty darn busy, but I will definitely do my best to try and answer those comments. So thank you everyone for the kind support. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up. Remember everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence and be very careful in this market. Volatility is high, emotions are high, which makes for some dangerous and challenging trading conditions. So plan your trades very carefully. Understand the risk of the trade before you hop in, and don't just blindly race into a trade. Let's take a look at Palo Alto here. Palo Alto, this is one of those charts where we broke the trend, we broke support, and then we recovered it. We recovered it and held, and we're continuing to move to the upside. So I would say the new trend is in here someplace. Watch that carefully. If we can hold on to this price support in here on this pullback, Palo Alto, I think, might have that opportunity to continue to stretch on up. Still will be some anticipation on earnings here on 19th of next month, so watch that carefully on that. PayPal had that deal with OpenAI, and boy, it shot up big, and that thing is pulled back just like wham, right back in, filled the gap. Now the question is, will it hold this price support in here and hold on to this little upside trend? I think there is some opportunity in here that might pick up and hold in here. Watch that carefully on PayPal, worth paying attention to. Take a look at Roku. Roku still holding in here on this pattern. We're going to be getting that report today, so watch that carefully, but this is a nice little hold pattern. If those bulls can step through and hold, I think that's worth paying attention to in here. CVS yesterday reported well and popped up strong and then ended up selling off. But the report was strong in here, so I would continue to watch this. I think this is just the volatility talking in here. That volatility has been really challenging, so watch that carefully here. If this holds this support and you see that little bit of bullish action, I would probably place a price alert right through there and make that pop before I would be jumping right in. But watch that one closely. Could be very interesting here in the market. You know, there's no way to get around how these earnings are coming out, and the winners win really strongly, the losers lose really strongly. Take a look at Chipotle. Chipotle is one that I've been holding here with a pretty small position, but holding what I was hoping that this was starting to build up into a good bullish position here, and holding that 50-day moving average. And then that earnings came in and slammed that down. I'm glad I had a hedge on that. I will be closing this today for a loss, but that's just the damage that you can have trading around earnings events in here. It it is a very dangerous world right now in the volatility around these earnings events. So watch that carefully. Try to avoid those. This is the only one that was a relatively new entry trade that I decided to hold through earnings. I just don't play that game, and it's because of this. It's a coin flip. It's a gamble, and it's not something I want to risk my money on. Just gambling on a coin, 50-50 chance coin flip in there. So keep an eye on those. Take a look at Merck. Merck reporting this morning. I was waiting for this to take off and get something going. Reporting this morning. There you go. That's why you wait. You don't anticipate an entry into those trades. You wait on those trades. Now what that means is sometimes you're going to miss good bullish trades like UPS that I was talking about, but I will not make a practice out of just taking all of my technical analysis work and flushing it and saying I just have to gamble around earnings in a 50-50 shot of winning. I want better odds in a trade. So that means most of the time, if a trade is like this, I just let it go. It passes by, but then I just wait for the next entry into the trade. And I don't know where that entry will be. We have a pretty strong area of price resistance in here, but believe me, I will be keeping a close eye here on UPS, and I will be looking for that next entry into that trade. So I just wanted to explain some of those things here, why I do what I do. I really work hard to protect my win-loss ratio, to protect my odds of winning in a trade. And in these earnings, particularly in this earnings volatility, I'm not going to gamble around an earnings event because of the damage that can make. And you've got to know that there's a lot of people hurting today that were just overly confident that Meta was going to blow out earnings and be great. And that's a pretty substantial hit to an account. So be careful in here around these earnings events. Winners are getting celebrated hard, but losers are also having some major pain in the market. Let's take a look at some of the oil sector stocks in here. Now, unfortunately, here we go again. We have a beautiful setup pattern here on ExxonMobil. It's going to report tomorrow. So probably nothing we can do with that, or nothing I'm going to do with that, but I really like the way that is setting up in here. Depends on how it reports, how it reacts in that report. May still be an opportunity. The same thing is going to be true here of Valero, but Valero got past that earnings report, as you can see, and now showing that bullish pattern in here where we may be holding into this trade, into this position. So watch that carefully here on Valero. May have an opportunity to the upside there. Been seeing quite a few stocks in this oil sector that are really, really weak, but there are those that are starting to come back around, like that ExxonMobil, looking very bullish. So watch some of those carefully here. Keep an eye on these bonds. TLT in here, really strong reaction lower yesterday on the news that there's likely not going to be, well, there may not, I shouldn't say likely, that there's not going to be a rate cut in December, but raised the probability that there wouldn't be one. And that had a pretty strong pullback in those bonds. But if we shake that off, and as we move forward, we might get more information from some of these Fed members in here. This has been moving in this upside trend, and this has been kind of hopeful in here on that. So watch that carefully here on TLT. May have some opportunities. And I would continue to just really stay focused in on a lot of the energies out there anyway. Anything that could supply energy to AI is definitely going to be in demand. UEC picking back up here in the chart. Little rest pullback might set up an opportunity there, but keep an eye on some of these uranium plays. Keep an eye on some of these solar plays. First Solar, unfortunately, here we go again. Another earnings report right in here. but it is setting up in another bullish pattern. So keep an eye on some of those. They look pretty darn good. So I hope that was useful for you this morning. I hope everyone got something out of this video today. I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. Y'all take care, be safe, and I'll see you right back here bright and early Friday morning. And as always, I wish you all the very best. Take care.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Rideways my ranch on the trader's trail. Trading with heart where the profits prevail.